Welcome everybody. Welcome to Wednesday. We are here. We're going to talk about how AI is changing job seeker behavior today, which I'm pretty excited about. I think it's a topic that we're going to probably come back to 100 times in the next 2 or 3 years, but I think it's a really good place to start. The consumerism of AI and what that's going to mean in the future. So, my name is Leah. I'm going to be our host today. Chris and I have swapped jobs a little bit. Chris is going to join as one of our panelists, which I'm super excited about. Uh, and today we have as our special guest Jonathan Turpin. Jonathan, I'm going to have you introduce yourself in 1 minute. Just a few things for everybody on the call today. Your mics are hot. Your cameras are hot, so if you don't want to be on camera, please make sure you're aware of that. If you do, we would love for you to join the conversation. It is open, so please be part of our conversation and jump right in if you have questions or thoughts or would like to contribute to the overall topic. We also have a chat function. We like to think that there are two conversations going, so please feel free to utilize that chat. We'll monitor it, try to pull questions and interesting thoughts out of it as part of the overall conversation. My name is Leah, as I mentioned. I lead our commercial business. And JobSync is a platform we're really focused on optimizing the candidate experience and how you get candidate data into your systems for companies to have significant return on their overall recruitment marketing investments. I've joined today with Chris Russell. So Chris has two hats. I'm going to let him talk about his second hat in a minute, but his first hat is he does support some of our marketing efforts, but he also has a separate business that he runs. And I will have you introduce yourself in a second. And Alex Murphy has joined us as well. He is the CEO of JobSync. So all of that. Jonathan, no, actually, I'm going to have Chris, you start and give a quick intro on your RecTech business. And then Jonathan, I'm going to have you jump in and give a little information on you and on AIM Group. And then we are going to get started.
Awesome. Well, yeah, welcome everybody. Chris Russell from RecTech Media. I've been kind of covering the recruiting technology space since around 2017. Before that, I ran some job boards and some other career-related startups. So I have a lot of interest in the whole job search experience and been playing in that field for over 25 years now. So it's something near and dear to my heart and something I'm pretty passionate about as well. So looking forward to today's conversation around how AI is changing all that.
Awesome. And Jonathan?
I'm Jonathan Turpin. I'm a principal at the AIM Group. The AIM Group is a specialist business intelligence service for marketplaces, including recruitment marketplaces. So I'm going to come at this slightly from a marketplaces angle, but with some general observations on how that affects the market kind of more broadly. And I have a fascination with what AI is doing at the moment. I think we're in the very early stages of what's going to happen, and have a few thoughts on how some of the longer term perspectives may turn out.
Awesome. So Jonathan, you, because I know you and you are an overachiever on all fronts, have a couple of slides you wanted to kick us off with to give a little shape to this conversation. Do you want to start with that? And then we'll dive into.
We'll do. I mean, these are literally 5 random slides, not put together for this. But they're just kind of maybe ways of helping crystallize a few thoughts. So let me see if I can get this up. Okay. Can you see? Oh,
yes.
Yep.
What can you see? Because
Roundtable, how AI is changing job seeker behavior. Yep.
Good. Okay. So I'm just going to click through these very quickly, and the kind of brief I was given was, show a bit of few interesting numbers that you think are. I'm going to show only a couple of numbers, and I think some of the conclusions are kind of obvious, but I think they're kind of helpful in thinking about AI. The first is a chart. This was produced by the Competition and Markets Authority in the UK, and it shows how people who adopt AI tackle different forms of search. And I think what should be very obvious is that if you're going for something that's complex, then AI search increasingly becomes the default way to go. If you're going for something simple, finding a product you don't need deep discovery, then you stick with the old way of doing things. And I think the obvious statement is that one of the most complex things around is recruitment, finding the right job, finding the right person to employ. And I think, this is one reason why AI is going to be quite so fundamental in the space we're in. So yeah, a bit of a statement of the obvious. Second, and this one I keep coming back to in my mind, this is a slide from Indeed from actually, I think about a year and a half ago from one of their presentations. And the statistic on it is that 60% of applications come from personalized job recommendations. And I think one of the big shifts we are already seeing, and we've seen this for a long time in marketplaces, we used to think about marketplaces as places where people search for things, but increasingly that's turning around and it's the job finding the person. And I think AI is going to force us much more in that direction, as well as help us much more in that direction. So a key theme for me is that AI is about forms of outreach. And when it's used well, it will be finding the right people rather than necessarily the people finding the right job. So 60%, and that's Indeed. Other very good job boards are at similar levels. Many don't yet get that actually, it should be about the job finding you. So this one you'll all know, obviously, which is the money that goes around our system. The level of payment that's made, quite substantial in many hires, particularly at the highest end. My hypothesis is that actually we're going to see those costs come down substantially, and something between, the Indeed, what you take as simply a recruitment marketplace, and what you're paying a staffing agency will be much more the norm when we have much more AI-assisted recruitment. And I think there will be fewer people doing recruiting in more sophisticated ways in time. But I don't see the human recruiter going away in most areas for a long time. I think there are things that humans do very well, and there are things that AI does very well. And the question is, how do you optimize to get the humans doing the right things and the AI doing the right things? So when we look at the market, this is kind of a chart that just sums up how we see at a very high level some of the process that goes on in recruitment. And the bits that we think about most are job seeker search, in our place, going to marketplaces, etc., and recruiter search, where the recruiter is going and searching for candidates in an environment where they can identify people, outreach to them, approach them. I think where AI is going to get really interesting is in the bits on the right and the bits on the left, the discovery processes, and then the bit in the middle, which we've termed the magic, which is the matching process. So, it seems quite clear that AI is going to help recruiters substantially with a lot of the hard work about figuring out the types of people, the types of approach to them, etc., letting them be much more in touch with the human side of things, having the conversations and having the right conversations. So the tools will help them substantially. And when I talk to people who are creating AI-enabled recruiter businesses, staffing businesses, they tell me that they can get much greater efficiency in terms of hires per head, etc., within their teams using AI tools, but with the people crucially at the center of that hiring. I think perhaps, for me as a marketplaces person, the most interesting thing is the left-hand side, which is job seeker discovery. So we've been a highly dysfunctional industry for a long time. And one of the most dysfunctional things is people finding the right jobs for them, finding the kind of things they could do, etc. And I think in that discovery space, AI is particularly powerful. It's the most kind of complex questions. And, I know people, looking for senior roles who may hire a career coach. I think, AI enables everybody in time to have a career coach, whatever level they're at, and that it will enable the candidate side to be kind of represented in the whole picture of how the industry works. And to date, it hasn't been. Most people don't feel they have the money to pay for a human coach, I think we will find some very good candidate-oriented services developing that really support candidates. And then I think longer term, we're going to get an interesting kind of matching up between those candidate systems and employer systems, and a degree of automation of those conversations that go on before the humans speak to humans. And I think that's where life gets interesting. And then in the very middle of this, we have all of matching. Matching is all about scaled data. It's all about hiring signals. It's something that you can do better. The more you know, the more you understand. And I think AI will get us much richer data on candidates and on jobs. We're moving towards the ability to have headhunter type conversations with everyone on both sides. And that will give richer matching data, but it'll take a long time to come through. And I think we will begin to see those statistics on outreach, go up even higher. And it's likely that many more jobs will come to you, and it's likely that you won't see a lot of jobs anymore. That the problems of AI in the recruitment market will mean that the jobs disappear from being generally visible and actually are visible when there are two matching parties rather than visible to everyone. That's a
on the matching side, Jonathan. There's too much keywords going on in job alerts today and quote unquote matching systems. So I think AI is really going to change that dynamic going forward here, right?
Totally agree with you. But to do it well, I mean, one of the biggest in all the marketplaces we look at the moment, one of the biggest problems is people don't yet have the richness of data to really get to the full power of this. If I have a lot of information on you that I build up over time through conversations with you, and I can throw that into a matching process with conversations of the type that headhunters have with employers about the role, etc. And I can get to that granularity of information, which will only come gradually over time, then the matching is going to be much more powerful and much more interesting.
I have a question for you, the both of you, actually. So I think we can 100% agree. No one on this call is going to be like, no, you guys are wrong. Matching today in the job board market in particular is abysmal.
Yes.
It's abysmal.
Yep. In most markets it is.
But even if it's possible with AI to make it perfect or really, really good, we have a second data point that we have to consider, which is the monetization element, right? So you just talked about take rates. Indeed openly talks about how their take rate should be much higher than it is today. How do you think these boards are going to reconcile their revenue model against the fact that because matching is bad, they are able to send lots of superfluous clicks and interest to a company that doesn't result in a hireable event or a candidate? How do you fix that? How do you change the economics so that it makes sense for them to actually make great matching?
So I think if you had great matching, the economics would work. We pay recruiters 20% of the salary because they deliver us a very tight group of people who hopefully are the right people. They make it very convenient for us, very simple, very easy. And if you can match those kind of capabilities, then you can push the charges up to a level that will reflect that. The problem at the moment is actually the matching is very, as you say, very low quality historically. And therefore it's relatively unsophisticated, and therefore it's hard to monetize in that way. So if you believe you're really getting to high quality matching, then you're in a different realm. And I think the monetization will follow it.
Yeah, they will pay for quality applicants for sure. No matter.
And remember, mostly it's going to be tech companies at the bottom end of the remuneration level at the moment pushing up. I don't think many staffing companies are going to be brilliant at deploying AI-based systems, and we've not seen that historically. I think they will buy in systems that support their teams. I think their fees will come down because they will become more efficient as businesses. And I think we will need fewer recruiters in the industry with kind of co-piloty type developments. And I think there will be a competition in both direction on the fees, and we'll see something more middling between the marketplaces and the staffing agencies.
Yeah. The staffing agencies can come down when their success rate of hire goes up, right?
Exactly.
It's been a few years since I meddled in the space, but my last memory was something like 1 out of 8 that they provide candidates towards are the ones that are actually hired. So if you take that 20%, right, it's really less than 3% that they are achieving if you think about the mathematics on it. On the other hand, I think it's unlikely, even with perfect matching, that companies are going to be able to mentally reconcile paying a job board 20% for a place, even a high quality one. I might be wrong, but like, please, somebody jump in and tell me I'm wrong on that.
I think these things will develop gradually. And as I said, I don't think it'll come up to 20%. But, if Indeed could make 5% rather than 1%, that's a huge amount of money. Do the arithmetic on it.
Oh, no, they're already a multi-billion-dollar entity.
They're already, second biggest.
Question is, how much is enough for Indeed?
So if you could go back a little bit though, Jonathan, you had this great slide. I think it was your second one around candidates and their use of AI.
Yeah, can I just finish? I've got one more slide.
Sure.
I just want to say, I think we tend to talk about recruitment generically, but there are clearly two different ends of the market and many spaces in between, the low skilled and the high skilled. I think, it's pretty clear that a lot of the processes in the low skilled side can be done much sooner by AI in terms of hiring than in the high skilled side. And so I think the biggest impact in the next 4 or 5 years is going to be what we see in the low skilled end of the market. And I think those things will only later flow through in the same way to the higher end. That was all I was going to say.
Yeah, I would agree. The high skill does seem to be where most of the effort and energy is being placed in matching.
Well, it's where most of the money is made, and therefore it's the valuable end of the market, and it's also where the complexity is. I mean, I think you've got a much simpler set of requirements at the low skilled end.
It's interesting in the U.S. though, as of today and for the last number of years, it's the low skill market that's actually harder to recruit for. It turns faster. You have to do it more often. It's a bigger part of the market, and there are not enough of the pool of people
to do the job.
Yeah, and so it's an interesting thing that we tend to discount the low skill market, but it is actually a significant part of the overall employment market and an engine in at least the
dare I
US.
say,
For
it's
sure.
going to be even harder to find those people shortly, the way the politics of the states are going. I mean,
that's a whole different roundtable we can have later.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't get into that one.
But in the world of AI, one of the things that is fascinating to me in the consumerism of it is, first of all, that many people have been using AI unknowingly for a very long time, right? The number of people who are chit-chatting with their Alexa or their Google Home, the number of people who use Waze or Google Maps for their GPS. They've been interacting and playing with AI in a way that most people are not even aware. Now that it has a name, we put sort of some identity to it, and we get to this point where we say, candidate, are you using AI? And I do a podcast with Kevin Grossman, who does the Candy Awards, and he asks, are you using AI? And I said, Kevin, you should ask more specifically, what are they doing with AI? Are they using it to rewrite their resume? Are they using it to apply for jobs? Those are very different versions of using AI in your candidate journey. Are you using it for search, right? So we're starting to see people run searches for jobs on ChatGPT, which is how we end up with this OpenAI announcement. I think we'll come back to that in a bit. But, what are candidates doing with AI? I think that's really the question of, like, when they say I'm using AI, what does that mean? Like, what do you think it means, Chris? What do you think candidates are actually saying when they say I'm using AI to look for jobs?
Well, they're just conflating AI with, a regular application process. And in some cases, the AI really hasn't, unless you're that guy Mobley from Workday, hasn't really, penetrated that much into the the overall scheme here. So it's still early days on the AI side, right? So most companies are just baby stepping into into these waters here. So I think it's just a lot of just noise out there that they're looking at.
What do you think, Jonathan, the candidates are doing with AI today?
So I think at the moment we primarily have very generic tools like ChatGPT, and they're not optimized in any way towards recruitment specifically. I think candidates are doing a lot of resume writing and creation, cover letters if they still do them. They're using systems, some of them, to spam applications in a slightly more sophisticated way than in the old days. But most of the stuff then, and they're doing it for discovery, for looking for the kind of jobs, looking for the kind of companies, etc. And it's. I mean, I played around recently. My son's at university. I know what he's like. I put in some factors about my son, what kinds of jobs might be appropriate. Actually, ChatGPT is phenomenally good at that high level kind of advice. It works very well. Some are cheating the system in different ways. I mean, some people are sat there when they're being interviewed with tools that are helping them answer the questions. Not sure that really gets you somewhere in the end, because when you get the job that you can't do, you're probably not going to stay there for very long. So, and I think that's kind of where we are at the moment. But the question is what comes next? And, I think we're going to have one of the things I saw recently really liked was for graduates, an AI system that helps them build their LinkedIn network. So it recommends the people they should connect to, it helps them connect, it creates the right messaging for them, etc. And I think we're going to get those kind of developments. And then lots of that candidate side stuff will come together into career coaching kind of environments. And I think we will see, something that really supports the candidate, helps them think about what they want to do, does the things that, a proper human career coach does, and probably does it, 90% as well, and at a fraction of the cost.
Wouldn't that be great if candidates applied to a job and they don't have to wait for you to reject them? The AI could say, hey, thank you so much for applying. We can see you're missing all of the skills that you need for this job. We might call you back.
I think it would be fantastic if people were deploying AI in that way,
I've not seen that. I made that up, but wouldn't that be great?
Definitely, providing it's capable of doing the assessment. And I think, you've got to always ask that question at this stage. And I think, come back to the point, we're at the generic point. We've got people building these big generic AI tools that are do everything tools. And a do everything tool is always less good than a do specific. And I think in the next year, 2 years, we're going to begin to see some really good specific tools, optimized for individual, market niches, etc. And that's when it really gets interesting. You think about what we've got today, done in a really targeted, thoughtful way, often in a niche way, probably. And I think we'll see quite a lot of niche kind of services, because you can do stuff at a niche level that you couldn't afford to do before using AI. So that's, I think, when it gets interesting.
That's interesting when it stops being a co-pilot and starts being more of an actual extension or personal assistant, and it understands the individual. One of the things that we hear a lot is the resume, the CV being rewritten by ChatGPT. And as a recruiter, you look at 50 and 35 of them are nearly identical because the generic has made them identical, right?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is where candidates will find something that's more personalized is going to be a longer term better fit. I do think that candidates who aren't using ChatGPT are almost standing out now with the human review, because they are different than the ones that are ChatGPT written.
But I think one of the big missing things in AI at the moment is memory and context. And we're beginning to see the extension of the context window on the big AI models, beginning to see better memory. I don't know about you, when I use my ChatGPT, my paid account on it, it typically says to me at the end, in your context, Jonathan, as an expert in marketplaces, well, made that mistake maybe, but you know, you might think about this, and this. And if you think about recruitment and having a long-term conversation with your AI and it remembering all the stuff around it and beginning to personalize, you'll begin to get the generic going away and you'll begin to get the much more personal coming along. I mean, the problem at the moment is that, the lack of personalization, the lack of contextualization, etc. But I think that will go in time.
I
And
think
not too much
it will
time.
go with it will also go with cost, right? Because the longer the memory required of the AI, the more it costs just to run it and to process. And so I do think there is going to be candidates are going to get used to the idea of having to pay for this assistant, right? Where you might have ChatGPT for free today because you opted not to upgrade to the paid for version. If you want it to be helpful, you're going to need to pay for it. Or if you need it to have a long memory, you have to pay for that.
So
Yeah,
there's
they're
an
willing to pay for that now
article.
too.
I was gonna say there's an article in Vice that Sam Altman did where he talked about the cost of simply saying thank you.
Yeah.
So what he was talking about was people will put in a prompt into ChatGPT and say something like, "Hello, ChatGPT, I need you to do blah 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 blah. Thank you." He said, "Thank you." Just the words "thank you" cost them tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, I hate to tell you this, Alex, but it's been debunked. There's a very good article that runs the calculation on what it really costs, and it's trivial. So
Yeah.
uh,
Well, the
apparently it was.
article doing the work or the CEO of the company. I'm not sure which one's a better source, but the point is that data has in the form of tokens has a cost. It has a cost in the context of processing and handling it. I would imagine that they've probably gotten crafty enough to drop the thank you at the end to make it so that they have less processing required. But if you want to retain memory of interactions over time, you have a geometric curve problem that has an ever expanding cost basis the more that you want to retain in your memory.
Yes, there are technical challenges, but there are also other solutions. So you can begin to build different approaches to memory, as I understand it. So I think people at the moment are not seeing long-term memory as a dramatic cost challenge, but it's really hard to tell. Different people provide different perspectives on how the technology is developing.
Yeah, I think
Kim in the chat there has an interesting comment. Sorry, Leah. She says, I use Claude AI acting as the decision maker. I put the link in to determine what the manager would object to about me as a candidate. Plug in my resume and the job description as AI to determine what I need to do to change to be a fit. So I think you're going to see what's something I call job search intelligence built into these AI tools in the future, where it's going to really help you just dive deep into the role itself, the industry as well, what's going on in the space, help you with that, the interview prep, maybe you do a mock interview and just become a kind of an expert almost on the industry as well as you're going into a job interview, for example. So it's what's it like to work there, or even like information on your potential boss, things like that, right? So it's a new world that's coming, and I think it's about I'd say about 3 to 5 years away, roughly.
I don't think it's that far. I think it's much closer than that. And a lot of it is, these are tools that have always been available to you, just not easily, right? So there's a
Yeah.
cost to a career coach. Now it's more of a universally accessible option where it hasn't been in the past. I think those things are going to become more and more accessible. What I do think is be interesting is how companies think about it on the other side, right? Do they say, you know what? Actually, we accept that people use AI. That is part of your job now, whatever your job is. And we want to both understand baseline and enhancement, right? What is your baseline? How do you operate? But what can be done with you with AI? Some people, AI is a small enhancement, and some AI can make them 30, 50, 200% more productive. And how do you measure both now, right? I think that's going to be the question for a lot of companies is how do we measure your baseline and what your potential is with a co-pilot that supports you? I don't have an answer to that. And if anybody's on the call that does, I would love to hear what people are thinking, but I do think that is going to be a thing.
what is it, like the games that have been introduced where you can have whatever drugs you want and so on. It's there's a parallel, you know.
I don't know what game you're playing, Jonathan.
Well, you know, I think the first games are being held in America where athletes can compete taking whatever drugs they want, etc. So
What?
it's kind of a parallel to your, you know, there's the base level and what I'm capable of with the supplements. And does the base level actually, is it important anymore once you're in that world?
I don't know. It's a great question. Is it, I mean, this is like the steroid games. So
Yeah,
Game of Job Thrones.
not sure what they're called, but it's a thing, definitely.
I guess I've always wanted in the Olympics, when they do the Olympics, to have average Joe also swim along next to them so you can see how much better the Olympic athletes really are. So it's kind of the same thing.
There should be categories for all of us that we can fit into, and
Participation trophies for all.
but it's a great question, right? Does it matter? Is it just what, how you operate? Because I guess this comes back to potential, right? So when you have a candidate in front of you and they've utilized all the tools, are they at max potential now? Or are they at just today's potential? It's a great question. I don't know the good answer for it at all, but it's a fascinating idea.
I don't know the answer, but I did see a piece of research that suggested, from work done in consulting, that it was the lower performers who benefited most from AI supporting tools. So it was bringing people up in standard, and that the better performers, although they were advantaged as well, did not improve to the same levels, which I thought was quite fascinating.
Yeah, it's going to help everyone up their job search game across the board,
Yeah.
I do wonder though if that's right? Because I think that people who are inherently curious enough to go, and maybe it's just because we're in early adopter land, inherently curious enough to go and experiment and play, there is an element of just that, right? Like your willingness to go and seek out help, seek out alternatives, which is different than whether or not you're a low or high performer. This is really more of an inherent trait.
I think it depends. You may well be trained in it. You probably will be trained in it, and therefore, you're seeking out maybe less relevant if it's actually, you're getting proper induction into how to use AI effectively.
So one of the questions we had was around the shift from, standard where searching and form-based submission of information to a conversational approach to finding information using a conversational AI of sorts. So I actually have a secondary question alongside of, what do we think is the timeline for people to sort of forego the old way and move towards a more conversational way? And do we think that candidates' early exposure to conversational AI, much of which was through a chatbot based system, even early days with Drift and some of the marketing chatbots to some of the newer apply based chatbots, a lot of them have frustrating experiences on that. Do we think that's going to be a deterrent, or do you think candidates are going to be willing to let that go and just go all in because the ChatGPT experience has been more positive? Big question. Sorry about that.
I think mainstream wise, I mean, it's, like I said, I think it's like 5 years away, mainstream, right? I just saw a site yesterday called jobswithgpt.com.
Yeah.
So I went to it, and it's got the same location keyword search that Indeed does. So I was a little old school there, but I think it's coming though. I think that ChatGPT is training the new generation of seekers out there to just type in a phrase or whatever it is and start a job search there. So, question is like, will Indeed go there one day? Perhaps, that's a big shift from an old school player like Indeed, I think. So I think it'll come from someone new, maybe the new OpenAI jobs platform that they just announced, right? So maybe that's going to be different. It's going to be more like just a one field entry there, conversational chat to get started and kind of go from there.
So I think a lot of the problem I think, the technology is capable of doing this very well. I think the consumer will only shift at the point it does do it very well. And I think the biggest problem at the moment is the data. we're still stuck with, the CV, the resume for you Americans.
We're
And
actually not stuck
we
with the CV. We just don't have the imagination to be able to shift away from it. We're just used to, and that's really what the time issue is going to be. That's why I would agree with Chris. It's going to be 3 to 5 years before we're willing to deal with the top of the funnel and literally have a conversation with the 250 people who applied, but do it with AI. And in that conversation, we can go to a much deeper level where we can differentiate between those individuals and get to know who they are. And as a result of that, humans will be able to make better decisions. But it's a problem. We're not going to get rid of the CVs until we rethink and reimagine what we do in recruiting.
One
until we
contributor that
do,
might get rid of the CVs though is if the CVs are rendered irrelevant, and if people keep changing their resume for the application that they're for the job that they're applying to using Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, then all of a sudden the resume doesn't matter anymore.
Well, but that's Alex, it's true already. So I have conversations literally every week with folks who are basically saying, I have no way of differentiating between 50% of the resumes that come or the applications that come in. And so I'm tossing a coin as to what I go forward with. The recruiter will never be engaging or interviewing 50, 100, 250 people. So they're basically, your chances of getting up to bat are now totally based on other kinds of issues. And fundamentally, we just haven't gotten around to making a decision that we're going to treat the top of the funnel differently and collect data differently so that we can make a better decision.
So I think that's, the point about the conversational interface is it's only going to be good when the data is good enough to have the right conversation. And if it's still based on the CV and the job description, it's not really going to get us very far.
So AI has got to be capable of going deeper in relation to that, but that's coming very quickly. And Jonathan, you talked very, I think, eloquently about the fact that we're going to have agents as candidates that know us a hell of a lot better. And so those agents in coaching us will want us to ask questions or represent us in asking questions of the hiring manager. Things like, how many people that look like me have you hired in the last 5 years and where are they now? When that kind of data is accessible and available, that career coaching information will be more helpful for me as the candidate in terms of the decisions, not just of where I can work, but will I work to my best in what environment? And we're not there yet.
We're a long way, and I think that's why the capability will take time to come. So it's not going to be an overnight thing. It is about richness of information.
Jerry, you mentioned, when candidates are finally ready to all have the initial conversation with an AI. I think one of the things that we've got to fix as an industry is the misperception that the AI, I put the quotes around that, has been screening them out for years, and that the ATSs are using AI to screen them out. And I think that is going to create an inherent distrust of the company's AI. Like they're all in on using their own. Don't get me wrong. I don't think candidates are against using ChatGPT. They do feel like, wow, I look better on paper. It's helping me mass apply, whatever it might be. It's a numbers game. But on the other side, this idea of screening me out is pervasive in the vernacular. If you talk, I talk to kids, coming out of college, and they're like, "Oh no, the AI is screening us out." I'm like, "No, they're not. It's the 700 other people that applied before you."
That belief, Leah, is only going to work when the AI is able to engage the candidate and say, "Hi,
transparency.
Here's what I can do for you. I can promise that you're going to get up to bat. There's 250 well, there's actually 255 people now who have applied for this job along. You have not yet done that, and we're going to take this job down in the next 15 minutes. So let us know if you want to express interest in this job. And you know what? You don't have to do anything. Just express interest, do a little due diligence to know what's going on. And I promise that I will interview you along with every other candidate, and I will be asking each of you the same questions. But I also have the capability of digging a little bit deeper to understand more about the roles that you play, etc. So, do your due diligence. You will get an opportunity to compete for this job. And that's not something you get when you apply to other places.
Yeah.
So here you go.
It's about the
And
process, Jerry. You're spot on here, man.
I'll give you feedback. Since I'm collecting data in a way that's consistent and reliable, I'm now comfortable in being able to give you feedback if you want it, in terms if you don't go forward. And
We
so
have
we're
to
going to
prep
have
the
to
candidate
set
about what's going to happen, right?
expectations.
We have to, as an industry, prep the candidate for what's going to happen here. We have to tell them up
Sure.
front. And I want to see a lot more of that from employers out there.
That's why it's going to take 3 to 5 years. We
Yeah.
got to change those expectations in ways that make sense, and then the candidates will flock to the companies that offer a combination of humans and AI that allow for them to put their best foot forward.
I love that you mentioned what did you say about the time limit there on a job listing? That might be coming in the future, Jerry. Like hey, you have 30 days, you have 1 day to apply to this job listing before it goes away or whatever.
It's already
I can
there,
see
right?
that.
Colorado already put that out, right? In the US, and it's existed for a very long time in the UK on many of the governmental positions or anyone that supports the government.
That's true. Yeah.
Hey, two things on this. So first, I want to just point out, Michael here in the chat said AI is in a really funky place because both sides use it, recruiters and candidates, and they both view the other side in a negative light, right? So there is no positive feeling. Now, part of it, Jerry, it's one of your favorite words is transparency, 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 right?
Absolutely.
I've never seen a candidate do this, but maybe someone has. This resume has been rewritten by ChatGPT. Like, let's just be transparent about it, right? When you have an AI screening and you start by saying, I'm an AI, like, let's be transparent about it. My question is, let's say that this idea of an AI that screens everyone comes to light. It's real. It happens. Is it adopted by the employers, or is it adopted by the staffing firms and the job boards who feel less concern around bias and around compliance than we see on the employer side? Like, I'm curious who ends up being willing to lean into it. And I wonder if a lot of the compliance and bias are the two reasons that employers choose not to.
I really like that idea, because if I were a staffing firm today and I wanted to differentiate myself, and I can promise much more in-depth way of getting to know the candidate because I'm using AI, as well as I'll be able to interpret what I've learned in terms of helping the candidate ask better questions that I will intentionally say I'll represent you for, so that you'll know about the qualities of the hiring manager in terms of whether he or she can develop people, if that becomes one of the issues that's important for you to want to work for a company, that you can do the job. And those are questions that are not part of the job. They're part of the environment in which you work. And so most companies will not share that information today. But I think in the future, we need to demand that as candidates in order to determine what environments we will be able to do our best work.
I think, you're going to see the candidates adopting technology to do this.
Sure.
I think as well, we've got to talk about it as if the world is as it is at the moment, that an ad goes out and anybody can apply for it. I think we're heading away from that world over time. I think you're only going to get ads that are relevant to you, increasingly. And of course,
yeah, I'm watching, I think I mentioned this before, but I'm watching my 16-year-old grandson use AI in school. And a year ago, he was just asking for answers. Today, he asked ChatGPT to to predict what the teacher is going to teach tomorrow and the questions he should be asking to look good, because 60% of his grade is going to be class participation.
That's
Wow.
lovely.
Now, when he said that, a light bulb went on, because I hadn't thought of that. And I'm going, you know, maybe we're not giving some of this next generation credit. They will drive the change eventually. That's why it'll take a little longer.
It's kind of amazing because he's
Right.
using the constraints of today, right? That class
Yeah.
participation is where his grade is coming from, the constraints. This is sort of your point, Jonathan, about the, you know, the today to stand out from everyone else, right? This is what people found with ChatGPT originally with their resume being rewritten, is that I can use the constraints of today, the resume, and stand out by having a better looking resume. Now everybody's caught up, not everyone, but many people have caught up. So now how do you then leapfrog again? It's fascinating. The candidates are motivated to continue to think these things through.
At my college, freshmen this year are immersed for a week in nothing but AI, so that they can make choices about how they incorporate that in terms of their next 4 years of learning.
Which
So
is amazing, 'cause
fundamentally, there's a shift going on, but we're not seeing it because we're looking at the work situation right now.
2 years ago, most colleges said don't use AI in your, or 2 years ago, don't use AI at all. The following year, they moved to, okay, you can use AI, but you have to show your work, like show me how you used it. And now, you know, this is a 3-year time period. We've now moved to, no, we're going to spend a week and you're going to get deep into it because you need to use it now and later, and it's not going away.
It's going to be show
Like
me your
that,
prompts you used. Yeah.
that's a fast evolution if you think about how technology has moved in the past. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen things like this adopt this fast, not email, not laptops, not any of it, right? And now here we are with this 3 years for colleges to go from absolutely no, zero chance, don't touch it, to let's go deep and as far into it as possible so that you get comfortable. That is a pretty remarkable shift. And I think we are seeing companies do it too, right? Although interestingly, we're also seeing companies get burned by it. And so I think we're going to have a little bit of this fluctuation for a while where companies test the waters, pull back, test the waters, pull back on the rollout.
Well, there's the whole fraud detection stuff now coming out from some of the vendors too, Leah. So, for example, Phenom just came out with one yesterday. It says identity and location verification using facial recognition and voice matching tech. AI generated response detection. They can flag answers that exhibit characteristics of LLM language usage. So that stuff's coming as well. Even Greenhouse did something with Cleared. So now when you apply to a job, you have to use your Clear ID just to get through the door, you know?
But validation, I mean, if everybody's able to put the same stuff in front of you, you have to have a way of validating.
Yep.
So validation's got to be a big part of this. I think as well, for many jobs, particularly lower skilled, we're going to see a further shift towards freelance, gig, contract. And one of the reasons for that, I think, I mean, apart from the fact that AI may be putting a lot of people out of work and changing the structure of a lot of jobs, is the fact that actually, if you work consistently or are provided for work by a third-party employer, you can validate past history and performance. So I think increasingly it'll become valuable for employers to go to a trusted source that is effectively your manager over certain, you know, a number of different roles, so that they can actually validate your performance in the past. And that's going to be quite interesting.
Alex, you just returned to blockchain. You're the second person who has put blockchain in here as the.
I think blockchain is jumped the shark already. So.
I do think that the one thing that's missing in this conversation is how are candidates now going to use AI to help determine that the company is real, right? Because we are seeing more and more fraudulent companies getting real applicants to really give up their information and really get onboarded to really get their bank information. So I'm curious where, you know, who or what ends up coming up with a solution to help candidates ensure the employer is not fraudulent.
I can tell you from running a job board, I've had these scammers come onto the sites, So it's all about, they usually use a Gmail address. So it's all about going to LinkedIn, see if that person exists on LinkedIn, if the company exists on LinkedIn. I had one the other day with a client of mine. And I was like, no, this is a spam job. They posted it. They paid for it with a credit card, probably stolen. So they went and onto Stripe and refunded it and took the job down and stuff. So it's crazy.
I've seen some of the larger job boards do require companies to provide their certificate of incorporation, their like a recent rental payment for their office space. So we're definitely seeing them try, but that's not stopped it, right?
Yeah.
We are still seeing this as a real problem in the market.
Greenhouse is starting to do like verified employer badges too on some of their clients if they meet certain goals using the system. So that's kind of interesting as well.
Feels like if you wrote a big enough check, you might be able to get that.
It's a start, It's not, I think it's perfect, but you can see more of that
preferred
stuff.
way to be
Verified
verified.
employers out there.
All right. In our remaining few minutes, I'm going to throw one more question out for you guys. Recruitment marketers. Oh,
Did
go
you
ahead.
want to touch on the OpenAI job board?
Yeah, actually, great idea. Let's do that. Let's talk about OpenAI made an announcement. They said we are going to create a AI-centric job board, and then 3 days later they went, we mean any job board, and here we are today. So, what are your thoughts? Where do you think that's headed, and what kind of disruption do you think we're in for with that?
Well, I don't think they necessarily said a job board as such. I think this is about industry certification, about owning the human value as well as the technical value. And I think that's what OpenAI is there trying to do. They want to own the certification process, have people trained on their tools, etc., etc. And a natural entry point to acquiring people is to bring them in through their own recruitment service. So I don't think what we're seeing is a challenge to job boards per se. I think it's much more about one party in the industry trying to own the industry and become the default standard that people talk about.
And there's this phenomenal post on OpenAI's website about how they power Indeed's job matching. I don't know if anybody's read this article.
They do?
Well, according to them, they do. I don't know. Nobody at Indeed
Well,
has confirmed that to me.
I'm curious how they're going to use Indeed and LinkedIn in this new tool as well, in terms of the integrations or whatever. So it's still to be determined, but I expect them to have some kind of relationship with both those companies.
I haven't seen the article, but I would be surprised if they're powering it in real time. I think there might be elements that are fed in and used, and there's a lot of job classification work and so on. But the actual core job search, I would imagine, is not Gen AI based.
I'm guessing it's probably
words. It'll be disproved within minutes.
Potentially their new AI tools that Indeed has been rolling out around candidate search from the recruiter side and job search from the job agent search from the candidate. Yeah, candidate side. I've got myself backwards. The recruiter being able to search
So
their
career
job
scout and talent scout, aren't they?
all the scouts.
Yeah.
And a little bit of teams in there too. So I think there's probably likely an element of one of those that they're actually referencing. But
but if you went to my chart of saying, recruiter discovery, employer discovery, that's exactly what Indeed is doing. They're now building both of those ends in a more sophisticated way. And that's, our expectation is a lot of the interesting AI play is in that space, and you often see Indeed moving first in these directions.
Totally agree. And I think a lot of the OpenAI jobs platform is a bit of a self-serving.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of niche, at
opportunity.
least at first anyway. So it's going to serve their AI job seekers or whatever. And it's not going to help you hire nurses out of the box, that's for sure.
Big global platforms, they've always been able to succeed in job search. Just ask Google and Yahoo and
Facebook.
Well, that's the thing. It could become the next generation type of marketplace for job listings and matching and all that kind of stuff. So
I hear Hot Jobs is available for a domain if anybody's looking.
They should buy that back. Yeah.
It's probably
I'm sure
still out there.
Bold would sell Monster for $31 million. It's a pretty good ROI.
in a minute. on that. Everybody, thank you so much for your time today. We will join you again next month. Chris and I are working on who our next speaker and guest will be. And I hope this was a
Jonathan,
helpful
thank you for
conversation.
being the victim this month.
Jonathan, you're amazing. Thank you for
It's a
joining us
pleasure.
today.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Let us know if you have any questions. Bye now.
Put it on
Take
YouTube
care.
shortly as well, so stay tuned.